put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome back to Youth Wednesdays on the Tobago Updates morning show. Monday, we had the reading of the budgets. Today is Wednesday, Youth Wednesdays, and we're here to give the young people that little insight about what would have taken place on Monday. 2.521 billion in fiscal 2023 was the allocation for the Tobago House of Assembly. This morning, we have with us Minority Councillor Petal Daniel-Benoit, and she's going to be chatting with us a little bit about the budget. Good morning,
Good
Mrs.
morning,
Daniel-Benoit.
Kayleigh. Good morning, Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, wherever you are viewing and listening. Good morning.
Okay, wonderful. So give us your immediate thoughts on the budget reading as the Minority Councillor in the THA.
So, immediate thoughts. First, I would like to commend the Minister of Finance and also the government in the management of the economy. And the Minister of Finance would have gone through in great detail in terms of the statistics, the economic outlook. And he would have indicated that the domestic economy grew by 1.5% in 2022, and the growth continued in Q1 of 2023 at a rate of 3%. And there's also a projection of growth for 2023 of 2.4%, and this is expected to continue into 2024 and 2025. We also saw where there was a decline in the unemployment rate. And I think in terms of management of the economy, coming out of COVID, I think it is commendable based on where we are. And you would have seen the international rating agencies such as Standard & Poor's and Moody's also having that confidence in the economy, upgrading from negative to stable. That is in the case of Standard & Poor's, and in the case of Moody's, from stable to positive. So I think in terms of steering the national ship, I would want to commend the government in their efforts. And of course, we would have had some goodies coming out of the budget. In terms of the social safety net, we see where emphasis was placed on that. Emphasis was placed on agriculture, crime and security, education, and of course the youth. And we saw where the minimum wage would have increased from 17.5% to $20.50. We would have also seen where we would be getting back pay for those public servants who would have accepted the 4% wage negotiation. Back pay is expected in December of this year. So there were some good things coming out of the budget presentation on Monday.
Yes, I think definitely that back pay part of it was something that stood out to a lot of persons,
Yes.
especially, it's coming around Christmas time. That's something that persons are definitely excited for. But in terms of Tobago specifically,
Yes.
developmental capital, a $260 million reduction from the last budget. Do you see this being a challenge? How do you see this posing a possible challenge for the Tobago House of Assembly?
So the development program estimates for 2024 is 260. It was 300, so it's a reduction of 40. However, when you take it in context in terms of totality, the total allocation to Tobago would have increased by 64.2%. And we are seeing that under this current administration last year, and I want us to take it in context, because if we take from 2017 to 2024, this administration would have received the largest allocation in the last 6 to 7 years. So in 2017, the Tobago allocation was 2.3 billion. In 2018, it was 2.203. In 2019, it was 2.236. 2020, 2.290. 2021, 2.14. 2022, 2.33. 2023, which is the full term of this current administration, it was 2.521, a record increase of 285, because coming in the midterm review, there was an additional allocation of $100 million, particularly on the DP side. And this estimate of 2024, it is 2.585. So yes, I agree that the development program side has reduced. However, overall, the allocation to Tobago has increased by $64 million. And I think it provides an opportunity for this administration to do some prudent management of the resources. Because in the past, we would have seen that past administration, particularly the PNM administration, would have managed with significantly less. And we have seen, and even the current chief secretary would have boasted the number of health centers per capita, the number of community centers per capita, and the number of police stations, and the list go on. So we have seen development over the years with a reduced allocation. And there are opportunities for alternative financing, there are opportunities for collaborating, there are opportunities for restricting and transferring. And we just need to be innovative, we need to think out of the box. And I believe that based on the historic trend, we can manage.
Okay, so we're talking about managing the smaller amounts by the previous administration,
Yes.
and what this administration is able to do with what they have, which is significantly larger than what they would have had in previous times. Now, we also spoke about police stations and that kind of thing. If I am not mistaken, you can
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, these kind of things fall under the 6th schedule, correct?
Yes, they do.
So let's give us your thoughts on that, because I know that the Minister of Finance would have mentioned something about that, and the Chief Secretary would have debated it, saying that the money spent on Tobago via the 6th schedule cannot be measured. Let's hear your thoughts on that.
So the Minister of Finance would have indicated that an additional $678.5 million will be spent in Tobago for major projects. And he would have identified some of the major projects, including the Dwight York Stadium, $4 million, the Tobago Airport expansion, $400, Roxborough Fire Station, $1.9, the silting of the Hillsborough Dam, and the list goes on. And that, in terms of the expenditure of the central government, it can be measured. Because if you look at the estimates, and I took the opportunity to actually go back into the estimates, those big yellow books for development program, if you go to the line items, you will see the estimates and the actual expenditure. And I took the time to pull out two of those line items. The minister would have spoken about the desilting of the Hillsborough Dam. And if you go to the development program estimates on the public utilities, you will see a line item there, desilting and rehabilitation of the Hillsborough Dam. The actual expenditure based on the estimates in 2021 was $8.13 million. The actual expenditure for 2022 was $9 million. The revised estimate for 2023 was $15 million, increased from $10 million. And in 2024, the estimate is 7.5. So you can measure that. If you look, I looked at another ministry, Ministry of Finance, and the minister would have spoken about the estimates for the construction of the airport terminal, airport, which is A&R Robinson expansion. And that is a major investment in terms of the schedule. And again, I went to the DP estimates, and under the Ministry of Finance, we saw air transportation, construction, and this is the line item, construction of a terminal and associate facilities at the A&R Robinson International Airport. The actual expenditure for 2021 based on the estimate book was $63 $48.827 million. For 2022, the actual expenditure was $48.13 million. And the revised estimate for 2023 was $110 million. And for 2024, the estimate is $400 million. So you can quantify the spend under the sixth schedule if you review the estimates. And the thing about it is, the actual expenditure, if you want to query the actual expenditure is actually audited by the Auditor General's Department, who also audit the Tobago House of Assembly. So you can quantify and you can see what is the actual spend in terms of the sixth schedule. Okay. And I think we could do it for all of the line items and all of the expenditure under the sixth schedule that the minister would have spoken about. So there is room for that, as well as there is room for further collaboration between the Tobago House of Assembly and central government for items under the ministries of the central government. We have the Ministry of Youth and national security, and we are seeing a number of programs in relation to youth, and I am sure the Ministry of Youth is willing to collaborate on some of those programs with the Tobago House of Assembly.
Okay, Councillor, what's a response to that debated question? I mean, you brought the facts, the statistics and everything to prove what you are saying. Now, I want to piggyback on the response that you would have given before in terms of the differences in the allocation. As a Tobagonian, not a politician, as a Tobagonian, let's measure the development of Tobago within the last 2 years in comparison to, well, obviously the previous administration would have had a much longer time in office. But let's measure that development between those 2 years, with seeing that the current administration would have had the larger bulk of what was given before in the Tobago budget.
So as a Tobagonian, I am quite disappointed. And again, let me go to the statistics, because if you look at what is happening in Tobago, you are seeing persons are complaining, you are feeling, and a colleague said it last night, the trauma of what Tobagonians are going through. Based on the statistics, although the Tobago House of Assembly would have received a larger allocation, we have seen a decline in the economy. And this is after coming out of COVID, where we saw an increase or an uptick in the growth of the Tobago economy. We saw where under this administration, the first year of this administration, we saw a decline of 2% in the Tobago economy. And if you look at major sectors in the Tobago economy, you look at the construction sector, you saw a decline of 34%. If you look at the agriculture sector, you saw a decline, I think it was, of 7%. And if you go through the sectors, you have seen, or it has recorded, a decline. And this is major based on the policies of this administration. And I want to go back to construction. We are seeing on the island where Tobago-based contractors, indigenous contractors to our island, have complained about not receiving jobs, and they have complained about not receiving payments. And that is as a direct result of the policy. So if the construction sector is not engaged, then it has a ripple effect, because the construction sector, when they are engaged, employ individuals, employed Tobagonians. Those persons who are employed can spend money in the groceries, the supermarkets, the corner shops. And when that is not the case, contractors have to dismiss their employees because they are unable to pay. Contractors are not able to keep their financial obligations with the banks and other financial institutions. And you are seeing the ripple effect based on the data. So I think coming into office with this large landslide victory, the national and even the Tobago population had great expectations, but unfortunately, based on the management and their stewardship so far, I think most persons are left disappointed. And it is not my words, but the facts speak for themselves.
Okay, Councillor. And the DRC would have recommended between 4.03%
Yes.
and 6.8% for the allocation for the THA.
Mm-hmm.
We would have received 4.36%, not even the middle of the percentages that were recommended.
Yes.
Are you satisfied with this allocation?
So as a Tobagonian, of course, we will always want more. But again, you have to take it in context. So there are finite financial resources. And over the years, Tobago has been asking for between $4 or $5 billion. We more than often we get on the lower end, half of what was requested, more or less. But if you take it into the national context, everybody is seeking piece of this national pie. And of course, the minister, the cabinet, the government has to look at the priorities nationally, and based on the requests of each entity in terms of ministry, Tobago House of Assembly, other state agencies, they have to prudently divide this national finite resources among everybody. So I agree that we could have additional allocation, we can have more, but I also want us to consider there is a autonomy bill before the parliament which was not approved. And this current THA administration would have vehemently gone against what was presented in the parliament. And in the parliament, before us currently, we have a minimum of 6.9%. And that was the minimum starting point. And we are not saying that with the autonomy bill that everything that we want is currently what is in the bill. But I think it's a starting point. We would have moved from the 1980 bill to the 1996. And I think incrementally, we can get what we want to be. And it's a step for me in the right direction. So it is also, the Chief Secretary spoke about improving relationships and improving collaborations and strengthening the public financial resources as well as autonomy. I think this is a step in the right direction if we consider what is currently before the parliament. So as a Tobagonian, yes, I feel we could get more, but if we look at it in the national context, I am satisfied based on the historic trend what we have currently received, the increase of $64 million.
Okay, and before we wrap up the interview, I must mention this. Very recently, Tobagonians have been plagued with the issues regarding the sea bridge.
Yes.
After the reading of the budget on Monday, would you say that any strides have been made in that direction to alleviate those kinds of problems so that Tobagonians don't have to go through something like that again?
Okay, so significant strides were made in terms of the sea bridge in particular. And we would have seen, I think sometime in 2028, Tobagonians would have gone through some hardship and inconvenience in terms of traveling on the sea bridge. The government would have put its money where its mouth was, and it purchased 2 new fast ferries. And we have seen that reduce and
But in terms
alleviate
of the cargo
some of the
vessels
stresses.
specifically.
So a cargo vessel was also leased, and we saw where an incident occurred, and this was not catered for, and the cargo vessel had to be taken out of the route. We have seen where the Minister of Finance would have made a commitment, and he would have recommitted when he would have had the meeting with the Tobago Chamber about purchasing a new cargo vessel. And I am sure, although the minister may not have spoken to it in his budget statement, I am of the belief that the Minister of Works may address it. So let us look on and listen to the Minister of Works in terms of his presentation in the debate to see whether or not he would address the issues relative to the sea bridge in particular. We have seen where over time, yes, we have not returned to the pre-COVID number of flights the airline, but we have seen an incremental increase in the number of flights on the domestic airline. And I think over time, we would return to the place where we want to be. But also, in the House on Thursday, we would have discussed and debated the motion in terms of a transportation company for Tobago. And the minority would have gone through the data in terms of the capacity of the air and the sea bridge and the number of passengers. And in a lot of instances, both on the air and sea bridge, we have seen where the capacity and the persons traveling, the capacity would have outweigh the number of passengers. And maybe we need to really consider what the real issues are, particularly in terms of the sea bridge. Maybe it is in terms of the booking system and how we go about that booking. So I feel like we need to do some more analysis in terms of what the real issues are so we can come up with the relevant solutions to remedy the issues.
Okay, Counselor, I mean, we're strapped for time. I really hope that you can come back sometime soon so that we can finish this conversation. But we want to thank you so much for coming on this morning and chatting with us. Viewers, we're going to head into some more budget talks very soon with Dr. Shane Mohammed, and that interview is going to be done by Dwayne Nurse and Natalia Nancis. So please remember to share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.
Put a smile